when the show was airing, the production company would hold a screening on a Monday night, and I would just sit there with my wine, watching the show, glugging the wine at the same time as just like refreshing the tweets and just feeling it just like wash over me. My anxiety started to be pretty bad around that age. So when I found alcohol, a lot of that was due to undiagnosed ADHD and wanting to quieten the voices in my head and wanting to just have a release. This is helping me to forgive myself.
We've had such a great response to the podcast, and so many of you have been in touch asking what you can do to help. It's really simple. Just follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. That way we can reach more people, and that way we can celebrate these great minds that think differently. Today we're diving in deep with someone who's lived multiple lives in the public eye, Millie Mackintosh. From Made in Chelsea to business ventures, motherhood, and now a fierce advocate for ADHD awareness and sobriety. Millie's been on a huge journey of self-discovery. Her latest book, Bad Drunk, peels back the layers of her relationship with alcohol and self-worth. She's here to talk about the stuff that's not always Instagram perfect, the realities of parenting with ADHD, and everything in between. Just a heads up, we talk about some difficult topics in this episode, including mental health, consent, and addiction. Let's get into it. Let's see how great minds think differently. When were you actually diagnosed dyspraxic?
I was diagnosed dyspraxic at school. Can't remember the exact age. I would say it was I had extra time in my exams, so it must have been before I was 12.
Okay. Not a lot of people know about dyspraxia.
Yeah, more people have heard of dyslexia.
Yes. And so
dyspraxia. How did
the dyspraxia assessment, how did that even come about?
I guess it was because I was struggling academically. I had trouble focusing in class. I had trouble following what the teacher was teaching, writing down from the blackboard I found really hard. I was quite clumsy. I found sports really challenging also. Couldn't hit a ball, couldn't throw a ball, that kind of stuff. But I think it was probably more the difficulty learning that alerted them to it. But It's interesting that they didn't realize I had ADHD.
How do you remember finding that of struggling with sport and struggling in the classroom?
I just felt different, and it just felt really hard. And I would often get in trouble and kind of take on the role maybe of the kind of joker in the classroom. I remember having to go and see an optometrist.
Okay.
So I got glasses, but they also thought that because I was struggling to write, kind of copy from the blackboard, that I had vision issues. So I saw an optometrist, which is an eye doctor, and I would have to go, maybe once a month to see them with my parents. And then I'd have eye exercises, eye homework that I had to do to try to strengthen my eyes.
Okay.
But in hindsight, it was just my ADHD.
Wow.
Then it was this extra thing that I had to do every day that I didn't really want to have to do.
If you remember your dyspraxia assessment, Millie, was there any symptoms they were interested in, or there's obviously going to be this overlap with ADHD and dyspraxia around, concentration, organization. Yeah. Did any of that come up?
Definitely the concentration, because that I kept, all of my school reports said she could do better if she would focus, if she would pay attention.
Yeah.
So it was definitely, I was being told often there was a lack of attention, but I was trying really hard. And if I was interested, I could concentrate. But for everything else, I really struggled. So I don't remember them talking about there being a link to ADHD. I don't know if there was as much awareness, when I was at school.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't even diagnose ADHD in adults until 2008.
Wow.
It was thought that it was white boys that got to their 16th birthday, and then they weren't ADHD.
Wow. That's shocking.
So it's no wonder that there are so many people like you who are finding this stuff out later in life.
Yeah.
It was almost like you were never going to get considered or even be thought about that you could be ADHD.
No, it's like she's got a vision problem.
Yeah. She's dyspraxic and a vision problem.
She's got an issue with her eyes, and it's like ADHD wasn't even considered because I didn't fit the mold.
Yep.
So it's like, let's create something else that's wrong with her.
Yeah. Oh, well, she's struggling to concentrate on the blackboard. Oh, that's because she can't see properly.
Yeah.
Okay, done.
Yeah.
So then you obviously did you understand what being dyspraxic meant at that time?
Not really. I think I was told it was to do with my coordination.
Okay.
And then I kind of was like, okay, well, that's why I'm so bad at sports.
Okay.
And it was like, sports will never be for me.
Okay.
And wrote it off as like, I can never do that. You know, I was never allowed in a team or anything.
And then you were being bullied at school.
Mm-hmm.
Was the bullying anything to do with, or do you think being dyspraxic or your vision?
I mean, I had braces, glasses, acne, this kind of untamable frizzy hair all around the same time. So I was very thin, like just naturally, that was how I looked when I had a kind of growth spurt. So I was teased for all of those things.
I think you talk in your book about I can't remember the exact phrasing, but something about your limbs being too long and you needed to grow into them.
Yeah, I just looked a bit like Bambi.
Okay.
I think, you know, being teased, whether it's because you're fat or thin or whether the people are, you know, pointing out that you look different from them, you just want to fit in. I think I did find it hard to make friends as well, because when I was really young, I had just had one best friend and our birthdays were one day apart. We lived near each other and that was my best friend. And I didn't really focus on making other friends. I wasn't really in other friendship groups. I just had my best friend.
Yes.
And she moved abroad suddenly when I must have been about 8. So then I hadn't made other friends, and I didn't really have the social skills to make the friends at that age. And I think just kind of not knowing what to say or saying the wrong thing and feeling like I was just doing things wrong. I remember feeling quite excluded.
How was your dyspraxia? I don't know why I'm laughing. That's really dreadful.
It's okay. Sometimes you have to laugh.
How was your dyspraxia with being drunk?
I mean, the amount of injuries I had, because I'm naturally a clumsy person with the dyspraxia anyway. Like, my spatial awareness is off. I don't like driving because I would often, like, you know, not get into crashes, but like bump my wheels or, you know, just get little knocks.
Yeah.
I can drive, but
yes.
I don't know, that I would just have little things happen quite often. I would just walk into things and, you know, just be unaware of the space I was taking up or like the space I was moving into.
Yeah.
So and then obviously when you're drunk, naturally you become, you know, more clumsy, more likely to fall over. So I've got honestly countless scars, and I'd wake up with so many bruises and not know how I got them.
What had happened?
Yeah. It would often be an altercation with a table.
Okay.
You know, so like kind of like a coffee table or a table in a club.
Yes.
That I'd either walked into, fallen off of, and I actually had some pretty bad like cuts and injuries. Not like broken bones, but, you know, probably needed stitches but didn't get them, and have some scars on my legs.
Yeah. It's going to be a recipe for like dyspraxia.
And especially when you're wearing heels as well.
Yeah, dyspraxia, drunkenness, and
I was always the one that would, you know, after my book's called Bad Drunk, but be like, friends would say you're like Bambi when you drink because your legs just go.
Okay.
But I could be like standing, dancing, whatever, 1 minute, and then the next minute just be on the floor. And often there'd be a piece of furniture involved.
From the outside, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but just seemed to be such like a pivotal time in your life of losing your gran.
Yeah, when I was 12.
Yeah, being bullied, glasses, acne, dyspraxia, then starting drinking, then being sexually assaulted, then being diagnosed with depression at 16, starting to take Xanax at 18. Like that 5-6 year period just sounds really dreadful.
It was.
And when I've got 3 daughters, and so when I think about you and that period of your life, and obviously I've only just met you, but when I put the lens of my own daughters into that mix, and I think about neurodivergence and addiction, how do you reflect on that?
It's a painful time to think about. I really can't remember a lot of it. It's quite blurry. You know, I think back and I'll have random memories that come to me sometimes, but a lot of it is quite foggy. It was a lot of quite similar behavior, which was quite repetitive.
Yes.
Getting into stupid situations when I was too drunk to consent. And my low self-worth and low self-esteem meant that I just kept attracting the kind of wrong people into my life and just repeating more of the behavior that led to more of those feelings. So I was in a cycle.
And how do you now reflect back on that period and ADHD?
Some people, when I got diagnosed, said, "Why did you even bother getting diagnosed? You know, you're an adult. Like, why do you need to know?" And it's like, actually, I can look back on the choices I've made, the different ways I've acted, all of the hurt that I've caused myself, other people, all the stupid shit I've done.
Yeah.
And horrible things that have happened. I can look back and say, like, a lot of that was due to undiagnosed ADHD and just wanting to escape, wanting to quieten the voices in my head, wanting to feel calm, wanting to just have a release.
Yeah.
And on top of like all the other things you said that I was struggling with. So when I found alcohol, it was like this amazing like potion. It was, you know, it was like magic. Suddenly I could forget all of those things, and the grief, the bullying, like all of it, just I suddenly felt confident. It's like I could become a different person.
Yeah. And it sounds like from the book that you sort of found your role of a persona that Millie could be.
I created a persona.
Yeah. Can you tell me a bit about that persona?
So I guess I also can kind of separate them in my head as like Miller. So Miller was my name that my closest people in my family called me until I was about 12.
Okay.
And interestingly, when I moved to a new school, I decided to be Millie.
Okay.
And Millie, I mean, obviously I'm still called Millie now, but
Sure.
I felt like I was like, okay, I want to, you know, distance myself from, also I was going from a girl into a teen. So I was like, this is the new like grown up me that's now, you know, interested in boys and has discovered alcohol. And I became much more confident. I became probably almost like the girls that bullied me when I was drunk. You know, suddenly I would like kind of walk differently, and suddenly I had the confidence to dance when normally I felt like too ashamed of my body to.
Yes.
So it was like just almost like stepping onto stage. It's like a performance.
Yes.
And it was suddenly the girl that would, in a way, when I'd been the joker in the classroom, it was also like I would be the one that would make everyone laugh with my stories of how like badly my night had gone. So it became like a way to be popular because I would always have an entertaining story to tell. I would always be the, you know, the wild party girl, the one that was going to be really fun and over the top and have that kind of hectic party girl energy.
So I massively relate. So I stopped using heroin when I was 25, so 17 years ago. And I stopped drinking alcohol when I was like 20, 21, but was introduced to it from a really early age. And, you know, it's, you taught a lot of what you said in your book basically rang true in terms of how it was normalized and glamorized and just okay for like children to have sips of alcohol, and you just like all that kind of, you know, being in those occasions, it just being just really normal. And then the excess of, you know, I was first suspended at school when I was 14, and I'd nicked gin from home from my mum's. And that persona that you talk about of having the stories, the excess, the chaos, in my case, a bit more Jack the Lad kind of in that sort of male rugby, sport,
Yeah.
you know, girls drinking, horrendousness. But I can really relate to like that then becomes, I don't know, this way for validation and quite a good shield actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. I know what you mean about the validation.
Yeah.
And I was definitely hiding behind that mask.
Yeah. And then it's not being deliberately egged on, but you kind of.
But I was always easily influenced.
Yes. Yeah.
From quite a young age because I wanted to be liked. I wanted to please the people around me. I wanted to be accepted.
Yeah.
And in that culture of binge drinking and, you know, come on, yeah, have another one, and drinking till you throw up and pass out every weekend no one was like, oh, she's got a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Is she okay? Should she go to rehab? Like,
yes.
It was just.
This is a bit extreme, yeah. Millie, are you okay?
No, it was just like, get, fake ID, get a bottle of vodka before going to a school event.
Yes.
Not like a massive one, but like one of those small bottles. And I'd drink that just while I was doing my makeup.
Yeah.
Just swig it back, mix it with some Ribena or something, and just all up when I was at my parents', I'd take a little bit off of each bottle, put some water in so they wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, how do they get so drunk at this, teen event or school event?
Yeah, yeah.
And you'd just blame it on the like 2 alco pops that you'd been allowed. Yeah.
Absolutely lightweight. Yeah, don't worry about anything that happened beforehand. Oh. Talking about all of this and then thinking about your daughters. Yeah. How does your experience then influence, what you want for your daughter's future?
Well, I don't want them to go through what I went through. I don't want them to go to boarding school. If they want to, age 16, I'd probably be open to talking about it if it was weekly. But I want them where I can keep an eye on them.
Do you worry about their future?
I don't actually, because I worry about things like social media and then what I do. And then I do sometimes worry about what my job means for them and them seeing me on social media. Is that going to make it harder to protect them?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so glad that I'm sober and that, Sienna was 2 and Aurelia was 6 months old when I stopped drinking.
Yeah.
So they are not growing up with a mother who's an addict, a mother who's not in her feelings, that's not present, that's more anxious, more angry.
Yeah, you're present.
I'm present and I'm aware of my and I'm aware of my ADHD and I'm aware of what triggers me and I'm doing the work. So I'm really glad that they've got me, on my healing journey.
Yeah, it's a great example to set.
Obviously, I can't say that they'll never drink alcohol, but I know having one parent that doesn't drink is, you role model to your kids. So hopefully that will influence their decision to drink and how they decide to drink. And I want to start having really open, honest conversations with them from the age that feels right and in a way that feels appropriate, but to explain a lot of what I went through and, the books out there, they're going to be able to access all of this stuff about me. And unfortunately on Google, there are, pictures of me completely off my head. So I've got that to deal with as well. Then they've got me on Made in Chelsea, like throwing a drink in their dad's face. It's gonna be interesting.
Do you see any ADHD or dyspraxic traits in your daughters?
So my husband's dyslexic.
Okay. Oh, you got it on both sides.
And my mum, I think, is dyslexic as well.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got it on both sides. But my husband isn't.
Oh, we should have had Hugo sat here as well.
I don't think he has ADHD.
Okay.
So you can have dyslexia or dyspraxia and be neurodivergent without being ADHD.
Yep.
I would say I don't think he has it because I think when you have it, you can see similar traits in someone else.
Let's talk about your ADHD.
Yeah.
Previous to being diagnosed, what did you know about ADHD?
I guess when I was younger, I thought of ADHD being typically a boy that was disruptive at school, possibly even violent, that was really difficult in class. I went to all-girls school from the age of 10, but I guess I imagined it mainly being a boy and somebody that was physically hyperactive.
Yes.
Like jiggling their leg all the time, like on edge, like seemed like they had 100 coffees.
Yeah.
That is how I'd imagine someone a bit twitchy, like someone that's like constantly moving.
And can you remember the time when, ADHD then came into potentially your own remit in understanding?
It was on social media.
Okay.
When I think it was Mel Robbins, who I've followed for a long time, posted like 5 signs that you might have ADHD as an adult, or like 5 surprising signs. And it was one of her podcast episodes.
Okay.
And I listened to it and really was like, wow, like maybe I've got it. And someone else I know and work with closely got diagnosed. And suddenly I was like, okay, so women like, seem to be being diagnosed like later. And I was like, that's interesting. There was just a few things that just were in the back of my mind. And then I've been seeing a psychologist for a while, and he was like looking at me one day, and he was like, have you been tested for ADHD? And we were going through a lot of like my history and all different things to do with my mental health. And he wanted me to get tested, but I still didn't do it for a while.
Was this when you were, I think for the second time, you were diagnosed with depression, generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD?
Yeah.
And is that where the ADHD then came in?
Yeah, I got diagnosed after that, once I'd kind of come through that.
Okay.
Because there was like a lot going on at that time to just try and like, I guess I had a bit of a breakdown. I was the most unstable I've ever felt, let's say.
And you were sober?
Yeah, and I was sober. I was like, why is this happening to me? Yeah. Like, I'm sober, I should be feeling great.
Yes.
Like, I've solved all my problems because I've stopped drinking.
Yes.
And then because I wasn't numbing with Xanax and alcohol, I couldn't hide from my feelings. And it was suddenly very obvious that I was not doing great. I was trying to do loads of different things to help manage the anxiety, and the anxiety kept kind of growing. And I kept doing more. And suddenly nothing was working anymore. Yeah. And it just, I had to take some time off. I went onto medication, which I'm still taking.
Yes. That's antidepressants.
Yes.
Yes.
I found it really hard to accept that I might need medication because there's so much stigma around it.
Yep.
And being really into wellness, I felt that in the wellness space, it was like you should be able to cure your anxiety with
pharmaceuticals,
all the ashwagandha and the magnesium and the yoga and the breath. And I love all those things. But I was literally like, how much CBD can I, take in a day? It just wasn't helping anymore.
Yeah. Do you take ADHD medication?
I take it on and off, like literally occasionally I'll take it.
Okay.
Maybe once a week at the most.
And what's your experience of you on ADHD medication?
Actually, through the book process, I took it quite a lot.
Okay.
So my day-to-day is different every day. And I am often not having to sit kind of at my laptop all day. But what I really realized is when I do have to do something that's a bit more like admin based, or actually even shooting content, I started to find I'd get so distracted, like especially I shoot a lot at home, and I'd be paying someone to come and, shoot the content for me, with me, and I'd be getting so distracted and procrastinating, and I'd be hardly getting any work done in the time that she was there. And I was like, this is just stupid. Like, some days I just wake up and feel like I'm stuck in the mud. Like everything's a bit slower and harder to like motivate myself to do things. So I got prescribed Ritalin. And so it's not speed, just for like the listeners that maybe don't know. There's like different types of ADHD medication. The amount you take will so depend on the person. I'm really sensitive. I take 5 milligrams. That's like enough for me. I mean, I also, in my day-to-day life, drink coffee and find that really helps with focus.
Yes.
So sometimes I might also have, probably not advisable, a coffee and an ADHD pill, and but I need to have eaten.
Okay.
It's not good if I'm going to be around new people.
Interesting.
Which is a bit triggering for me.
The ADHD medication is not good if you're around new people.
It can make me feel a bit on edge in like more, if a situation would naturally make me slightly on edge, I'm not going to add ADHD medication into that. You're like more alert, but also it's easier for me to go towards an anxious space when I've taken it. And I found on one of the days when I was writing the book, I did actually have a pretty big panic attack and nearly went to hospital. And then when I went back through my day and was like, okay, how did we get here? I was like, okay, I didn't properly have lunch. I had my ADHD medication, had too much coffee. I hadn't taken any like breaks outside in the fresh air. I hadn't done a workout that morning. So then I was like, okay, I can see how we got here.
Okay, yeah, you can piece it all together.
I find the for a couple of hours, I'm great. And then when it comes to the end of the medication, I can crash a bit. And that's where I can go towards anxiety. So it's now knowing, okay, if I've used it and I'm going to be around 3 p.m., it's going to be wearing off. It's like, go for a walk with the dog, have a herbal tea, like get some fresh air, just change your environment, and maybe I'll take some CBD, have a CBD gummy or something, and that helps as well.
Sounds like you know yourself really well.
I'm learning myself, but I know I'm definitely much more aware of how I'm feeling, and then being able to pause and go, okay, what's actually behind that? What's going on?
What are the good bits of being ADHD?
Being able to get loads of stuff done, being able to just be really in my feelings. That's also a challenge. Being very sensitive. Yeah, being creative, having so many thoughts at one time.
It seems like from the outside looking in that there's a great aspect of being ADHD where you're willing to really give something a go and try stuff.
Oh yeah, the hyperfixation on something. If you're interested in something, you're and then also that thing, you can leave it to the last minute and then you'll get it done.
Yeah. What are you into?
My husband was laughing at me because he says that this sounds like a really silly thing to be interested in. I'm not interested in it.
I told you at the beginning that I'm really interested in trees, Millie. So
no, but trees like give life. He says that it's like I have an obsession. If I get an obsession with something, I have to get loads of the same thing. Okay. So he says I'm really into like beige or cream like loungewear.
Okay.
And he says I almost like collect it, and he'll see me like opening the package and he's just there like silently trying not to laugh because he'll say it's like another cream pair of tracksuit bottoms, and he's like, how can you have so many pairs, none of them are perfect, that you keep looking for like the perfect one? So that's one of them.
Why cream?
I mean, it's not practical with kids. I really like an all cream tonal look. I also really like things to match.
Okay.
I think that's an ADHD thing.
Okay.
I can eat the same thing on repeat. Like I've been since the start of the year. I've actually been keto because of ADHD and also because of just like gut health stuff. So I had some candida overgrowth, which is like in the gut.
Yes.
Feeds off sugar.
Okay.
And for a while I'd known that doing like a no sugar diet was the best way to heal it. But I didn't like feel last year that I had so much going on. I was like, I just can't try and get my head into that.
Why did you choose the keto diet?
I was apprehensive about even saying it to you because I don't want anyone listening to be like, Millie's promoting a weight loss diet, because to clarify, I was doing this more from my mental health and from a health point of view. It wasn't about weight loss. It's more how sugar is affecting my brain. So I was reading up on how sugar affects the brain and like the gut microbiome. And I came across this sugar detox by Dr. Mark Hyman. So I eliminated all sugar for 10 days.
And so you're still doing this now?
And I just kind of continued it because I felt so good. I would eat in quite a balanced way before, but then now this was suddenly eating a lot more fats and lots of protein and vegetables. But I found it just suddenly shifted things for me, and I felt a lot more clear. I had a lot more clarity. I felt calmer. I didn't have crazy crashes. Like I wasn't getting that after lunch crash where I just was like craving sugar. And my thing with food is wanting to just sometimes, I guess, instead of feeling something that's difficult, it's wanting to binge on like stuff I wouldn't normally eat that's like sugary and salty. So it's like a family-sized bag of Doritos, family-sized bag of, sour Haribo, family-sized bag of chocolate, and just literally like picking on it all like in front of like probably some mind-numbing TV.
Yeah.
And like the combination of that just being just like completely not in my feelings.
Yes, and you kind of get.
I can't just have one of anything.
Yeah, you get
anything like that. It's like just like you open the tub of ice cream. It's like I'm going to have the tub.
Yeah.
Open the box of chocolates. I'm going to have the whole box.
Yeah.
And I was like, this isn't good. This isn't healthy. It's good to have balance, but this is unbalanced and this is not good for my health.
Yeah, I need to learn more about this ADHD addiction
And sugar,
piece,
yeah,
because it keeps, either we're having
All
guests
or
on
nothing.
and the role of alcohol, the role of addiction, the role of ADHD, like this is a thing. How much is routine important and that consistency important for you?
I really thrive off routine. And I've realized that knowing these things about myself is really important, because I can see why now sometimes if I don't have a routine, I might start feeling more anxious or a bit overwhelmed. So wherever I am, whether I'm at home or whether I'm traveling, sticking to a routine is necessary for me. And I think that there's great power in that knowledge. Gabor Mate says, the best thing you can do for your kids is work on your own emotional resilience.
Yeah, I truly believe that I am a way better parent when, it sounds so obvious, when I'm in a better place. Like, it's sort of like, well, if I ensure that I'm in a good place and have what I need, then I have space to be a good dad.
Yeah, I'm really learning the things that help, like doing my meditation, doing my exercise, like non-negotiables.
What was the reaction to you saying that you're ADHD, both in your personal life and in your public life?
My personal life, I told a few of my best friends. I guess lots of people have become a lot more aware of it in the last few years because of social media and people talking about it more. It's almost felt a bit like a trend. So when I talked about it on social media, I had a lot of people saying, like, thank you for talking about this. But then, there was a couple of people like the Karens saying, you're just jumping on the bandwagon because it's, because you want to like seem like you're,
yeah, with it.
You're with it and this is like the cool topic. I was like, no. I've lived with this my whole life. This is not like for fun.
Yeah.
I told my mum, and initially she was like upset for me.
Okay.
And she, she was kind of, I told her I was doing the test and she really was like quite resistant to that. Like, why do you need to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And then it took a while to get the results. And when I got the results, she was like, well, I think there was a bit of a feeling of feeling bad that I didn't get diagnosed, which obviously I don't blame them at all. Like, I did get diagnosed for dyspraxia. Like, whoever tested me for that didn't pick up on it.
Yeah.
She just was upset for me. And then when I explained that actually this is helping me to forgive myself and to be kinder to myself and to understand myself and it's helping me, then she was actually like, okay. And then she was like, do you think I've got it? And so then I like got her a book and it was like, read this and then see, I think it was like Scattered Minds or something.
Okay.
And then I think we decided she probably does have it, but she's not going to get tested.
And then what have you seen, what's been your experience, I guess, since being diagnosed, of how you see it being portrayed in the media, this idea that, quote unquote, it's a trend or it's trendy or it's fashionable, or equally, as I read yesterday, it's a scam.
Apparently it's a pyramid scheme. And I heard this comedian talk about it. It was funny. She was like, it seems to be that if you have ADHD, you can go around telling other people that they have it, and then it just gets like passed on until everyone has it. I've definitely realized that some of my closest friends, I think, have it, and it's just recognizing the way that I think is similar to the way that they think, and I can see that that's why I'm drawn to them.
Yes. How is it similar or different in terms of the reaction of you stopping drinking alcohol?
That's interesting. I would say I've had a really positive reaction to talking about both things. And a lot of people have said, thank you for normalizing this. Thank you for raising awareness around this. And they're both so linked to mental health. If you understanding the links between ADHD, anxiety, depression, having ADHD being much more likely to become addicted to, multiple things, anything.
Everything.
Most people that have an addiction have cross addictions. Like mine was also prescription pills, but also I have a dysfunctional relationship with food, sugar, which is why I've stopped eating sugar, because I would binge on it and then feel horrible and then feel anxious and hate myself. And I was like, I recognize this behavior. Yep. So we're going to stop doing that.
We talked a bit about the positives and some of the great bits of how ADHD shows up for you. What are the difficult bits and the challenges, Millie?
The difficult bits are getting overwhelmed easily, getting overstimulated easily, especially since having kids, because that's what having kids is, overstimulating. There's lots of noise, there's lots of mess, there's lots of demands, there's less time for yourself. And you're suddenly going to lots of like kids parties and soft plays and places that you've never, had to experience before. And all of those things are very overstimulating.
Yeah.
It's a lot of newness, like new routines, and a lot of things you can't control. So becoming a parent with ADHD, I think that was quite challenging.
What about admin?
Admin. So one of the things I'm good at is outsourcing and realizing you can't do it all. That's okay. I have a great assistant. So that's how my admin gets done. I have a great team. They'll understand my needs.
Yeah.
And I didn't used to be good at asking for help, but now I put help in place so that I don't get to crisis point.
It's so important that, isn't it, that it's preventative, and you can only do that if you have some sort of understanding of what's going on.
Yeah.
I know that I have to remove the messages of I have to do everything myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm weak if I don't do, if I can't do everything myself. I have to bash through those to build, because my brain is built for efficiency and optimization. I have to build capacity, and the way to build capacity is I have to get out of the way. But I can only get out of the way if I know the challenges that I face, and therefore the solutions that I need to put in place to do that is really conflicting, because we live in a society where if you kind of can't do everything yourself, you're weak, Yeah. And asking for help is sadly a sign of, or seems to be a sign of weakness.
Yeah, I've definitely had criticism, like when I've talked about my mental health or my drinking, and people go, but you've got help, you've got a nanny, so you can afford childcare and someone, to help like organize your house. And how can you complain that you are anxious or depressed or, have a drinking problem because you've got this help? So how, and that one hits hard. Sometimes it's hard to ignore those comments.
Yeah. Because in the world of, social and being on TV, and I guess the impact of things like Made in Chelsea are that, oh, well, look, here's a privileged person, the private school back, all of that stigma.
Yeah.
It's
like, don't complain, don't explain. I really hope my content doesn't come across like that. I don't think it does, but maybe sometimes it's just how people take it.
Mm.
And I get it. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are struggling with the issues that I'm talking about, and they don't have help. I'm so fortunate to have the help that I have. And I know that. But by sharing these things about myself, which a lot of people probably think, oh God, why doesn't she just keep that private? That's,
sure.
It's actually like, let's talk about these taboos, because it doesn't discriminate. Yeah, sorry, just going back to the things you were asking me that I find difficult. I think the emotional regulation is really difficult for me. And that's something that I'm really conscious about working on because of my kids.
Yes.
Particularly, and wanting to, for them to see me be able to emotionally regulate when they're having big feelings, so that they can learn from me. She just started seeing like a meditation for kids coach.
Okay.
So she does like mindfulness for kids.
Wow.
And we've done like 2 sessions, and she comes in.
How long do they last?
An hour with the kids. But she comes, and she came with like a glue gun and glitter and all this stuff. And while they're doing something, she's talking to them and teaching them about feelings and how to calm themselves down. But then she also works with the parents to help coach the parents on what they're doing.
Yes.
That could be better.
Yes.
Not like what you're doing wrong, but it is kind of what you're doing wrong. But it's like how, say like your kid's being difficult, and you're like, oh, just give up. And like, I've done that.
Mm.
And then I've seen my daughter go, oh, I just, doing her homework, finding it difficult. Oh, I give up.
Yeah.
Slamming doors. It's like,
yeah.
Where do they see that?
Yeah.
That was me.
It's
really painful when you're like, oh God, that's me. And I've just seen them mirroring that bad behavior.
Yeah.
And then you're like, and now I can't get cross with them, because they've just they're just doing what they've seen me do.
Yeah.
And learning that just when they're, the best thing you can do when they're having that big behavior that's really uncomfortable to witness, when they're kicking off, is nothing. It's just being there, but just, you don't have to do anything because you can't actually do anything. It's like a volcano that needs to erupt, and you're just there to let them know that's okay. And then it's so ingrained in me to try and stop it.
Yes. Rather than let them
and it just
go
makes
through
it, and you just have to like let them go through it.
Yeah.
And then when they've calmed down, then you can talk about it. Then you can have the conversation and have the cuddles and figure it out. But when they're in it, it's just like, you've just got to let it happen. And that's what's so hard.
You can't, I think I sometimes rush to education. And so I kind of rush to like rationally explain what's going on or help them understand from a very logical and rational perspective what's happening. And they're in the middle of high emotion where logic and rationale are not allowed to the party.
Yeah.
So I've learned that that's like opposites trying to talk to each other, where they don't want to hear my like psychological explanation and analysis on why they might be feeling what they're feeling or what to do about it.
Have you read There's No Such Thing as Naughty?
No.
So it's this book by Kate Silverton, and it's like a news broadcaster, but she has a psychology background. And after she had her own kids, she suddenly really struggled, and she's written this book called No Such Thing as Naughty. And I was listening to her on a podcast at the weekend, and some of the things she said like really like clicked into place for me. I know it's helped a lot of families. One of the things she said is when your child's like, their energy's up when they're having a tantrum, when they're upset. So it's like your energy needs to match their energy. So when they're like, oh, I'm really angry and you're like, darling, calm down, it's okay, sweetie, like just makes them like bigger. So I go, okay, I understand you're really angry right now.
Oh wow.
And it's like sounds like such a small thing, but then they instantly go, oh, she gets it.
Oh my God. So I'm like, I don't know what you're like in a crisis, but I'm
quite good.
Yeah, I'm really calm in a crisis.
I'm really calm. Like my daughter like had her first proper like stacked it on the pavement kind of accident where like bleeding quite a lot from a couple of places, like needed to go and get a first aid kit. Very calm.
Yeah, that's a really good point. How does Hugo deal with you being ADHD, do you think?
So at the beginning, he was a bit like, oh, okay, like, are you sure, kind of thing. And then he didn't really know enough about it. And then he was like, well, what things do you do that are ADHD? Because I think with women, often we are expected to, I don't think we should be, but we are expected to do more around the house, more like we've just got so many different things going on at one point. But I was like, you know how I can be in the middle of doing something and then while I'm doing that thing and then get distracted by another thing and then end up doing like 5 different things at the same time and they're all kind of unfinished. He was like, yeah. And I was like, that's ADHD. I was like, you know how I like leave things out on the side? I was like, that's ADHD. I was like, when I get really overstimulated and sometimes like snap at the kids, that's ADHD. And then I feel really guilty and hate myself afterwards. I was like, that's also ADHD. And explaining it to him in that way, I think that helped. Like understanding that that's also why I'm, you know, I've had a lot of anxiety through my life and why I got into that place last year where I burnt out and, you know, had to really hit the brakes and figure out what was going on.
It's difficult with partners, isn't it? I mean, my wife is not neurodivergent.
Yeah.
She actually loves my ADHD and finds me being autistic really difficult.
So I'm really interested to talk to you about this because I only did a test for ADHD, but then since learning more, I'm now like, am I autistic as well? One of the things I read that I was like, maybe I do that is like not like saying the wrong thing and not being able to read, like if it's like wrong to say something. That's, is that okay? And a lack of empathy.
So really interesting.
And that's really hard in a relationship.
Really, the empathy thing is so there's loads of sort of common myths, I guess, around autism. A couple of them, a couple of the key ones are, and my wife was on the show and we were talking about this, the myth is autistics can't love. Right, that's one myth.
Okay.
Which is total.
Yeah.
There's another one that is autistics, cannot express empathy. And this is my experience of it. There's two sides of the coin. I am not very good at empathy where I can't see it, hear it, or
Right.
I'm not told about it. So if you were sat there feeling really dreadful or in real pain, but I couldn't see or understand that, I wouldn't be able to pick up on it. There wouldn't be the thing in me that kind of goes, oh, something's going on here. I wouldn't be able to read between the lines. But if I was saying to my wife the other night, I'm like, do you remember at our last house when I was really fucking worried about the grass dying? When it was really hot, I was out there with sprinklers. I was really, really worried about the grass. I did not want the grass to die. And the other night I forgot to put the chickens in. I'm really fucking worried about the chicken. Like, when I see or I know, I can be really empathetic and I can dive in and I want to help. And so,
I can read a story about something happening to someone and, burst into tears with the feeling of like how awful that is for someone.
Yeah.
But then if my husband's going through something challenging and therefore is like less able to be present for me, I just find like, or when he's dealing with stuff mentally, he just goes very quiet. And I notice, okay, he's more quiet and I'm like, okay, there's something going on with him. But then I find I then get annoyed rather than maybe being like, oh, I need to pull him. I'm like, oh, like how inconvenient. Like,
yeah. How dare you?
How dare you? Like, I need you to be amazingly supportive of me at all times and be on your best form all the time.
What are you like with rejection?
Not good. And I can see how that affected me really badly when I was going for the wrong guys that didn't want to commit to me.
Okay.
I wanted a relationship.
Yeah.
So I would have the kind of hookups and then, it would last a couple of weeks and then it would just, they'd kind of ghost me. And I'd found that really hard. Mm-hmm. Getting rejected for jobs, I found that really hard. And I definitely find confrontation very difficult and kind of being criticized difficult. But over the years, like through social media, I guess I've got better at it. I'm rarely in a situation where someone's really criticizing me to my face.
Yes.
But if there is a work thing where I kind of haven't, maybe done as good a job as I should have, and there's a conversation, that is very difficult.
How was that when you were kind of, I guess, thrust into the limelight when you were 21 with Made in Chelsea? Like,
oh my God. When the show was airing, we didn't have Instagram yet, but it was all about Twitter.
Okay.
And the production company would hold a screening on a Monday night when it was out, 9 p.m. And we would sit there all in a room together, which is often really uncomfortable because you've maybe like fallen out with some of the cast members or have hooked up with them and it's like weird. And I would just sit there with my wine, watching the show whilst refreshing Twitter and seeing what people were saying about me. Well, and I just remember that, like, kind of at the same time, like glugging the wine at the same time as just like refreshing the tweets and just feeling it just like wash over me.
The way you described
the feelings were coming up, and then I was just like drinking the wine to just be able to cope with what I was reading.
But like very ADHD moment of I'm watching something, I'm also watching something else, and I'm also doing something else, and I've got a whole load of feelings going on, trying to work out what the hell is going on, and I'm only 21.
Yeah.
Yeah. That.
Oh yeah, always doing all the things at once.
That sounds pretty full on.
Yeah, my anxiety started to be pretty bad around that age.
How's your anxiety now?
Like barely there. And I really think it's a combination of all the different things that I do. I went to an AA meeting for the first time last weekend.
How was that?
It was interesting. I'm kind of deciding if I think it's for me. I like the feeling of like the community aspect. I went to the one nearest my house. I think I'm going to try a few because I don't think that necessarily is like the one. It's like convenient, which is good, but you've got to see like the vibe. I like the idea of like a women's one as well. On my way there, I started to get some shooting pains at my leg. I was like, oh God, maybe what's wrong? Like maybe something's wrong. Like, oh, is it the left side of my body? am I having a stroke? And I, caught myself and I was like, this is anxiety, and you're feeling it in your body because you're nervous about going to this new thing and new people and, all of those thoughts. I just caught it. I was like, you're safe. Like, you're okay. You can leave if you don't like it. You're going with your friend who goes. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it went away.
Because your anxiety historically sounds like, from what I've learned, manifested in real, like, significant concerns about your physical health.
Yeah, a lot of health anxiety.
Yeah, a lot of like, I think I'm going to die.
Yeah, really scary panic attacks where I'm like calling an ambulance and like convinced I'm going to die. Or I am dying, I'm having some kind of stroke, shock, like heart attack, brain aneurysm. It sounds so extreme, but if you've had panic attacks, and I know for anyone listening that has had panic attacks, you understand, because the logical part of your brain is not switching on. So it's like my therapist explained to me, it's like your brain at that point is perceiving a threat as if like a saber-toothed lion or tiger is coming for you. Tiger. Sorry, saber-toothed tiger. Not fine.
No, but I like it.
There's basically a big predator that your brain is saying that you're about to be attacked.
Yeah.
And I had such a fear of flying for a long time. And he was like, it's like you're sitting on the plane and you're perceiving this threat that you'll know that you're, and that's why I had these like mass panic attacks on planes. And I used to drink a lot on planes. And when I stopped drinking, I was like, oh fuck, planes are really hard. I can't have a Xanax like this. It's really hard. So I've done a lot of EMDR around that. And I now get on a plane and start yawning.
Really?
Yeah. I fall asleep before takeoff. It's amazing.
Wow. That's like, opposite.
Yeah. I know.
The flight. I'm so chilled. I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing when you can really see the therapy and the work changing your life.
Yeah, making a difference.
And making a difference.
How's your social anxiety? And I asked that with, I guess, two lenses. One, not drinking alcohol, and two, experiencing anxiety anyway, and also ADHD.
So I was at a social event yesterday. I went to the races, which used to be a day out where I would get completely smashed. It's like that boozing all day, standing around.
Bit of gambling.
Yeah, a bit of gambling, like just, lots of dopamine hits going around. I've been to the races since being sober. I was like, okay, I can do it. I know in the past, like maybe when I was newly sober, it would have been a bit too triggering. But I was like, we're going to be there. I set out the amount of time that I felt comfortable being there. And we left just before it finished, so we didn't get that mad rush of everyone leaving.
Yes.
Because I don't love crowds.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So I think being prepared for it really helped. Like I went, I made sure I had something to eat. I had had some breakfast in the car on the way. Didn't arrive hungry. Knew who I found out the other people that were going to be there. And
did that help?
Yeah, that helped. Then I was like, okay, well, I've met them before. I haven't met them, but I know who they are, and it just. I like to know as much, like knowledge is power. So I like to know as much. I love like ahead of a day like today was very organized. It's like there's like a sheet that document that explains like all the timings.
Yeah, I can take no credit for that, Millie. That is Bella and Phoebe being...
Bella and Phoebe were great because I like to know, I like a plan. So we had a plan and I find socializing and small talk can be quite challenging. I struggle to sometimes know the right questions to ask, or someone asks me something like, what are you up to at the moment? And I just go completely blank and can't think of a single thing to say. And I've got so many great things going on at the moment. So I'm just like, I have to dig deep. Sometimes I think of like 3 things that I can say to people before. So I'll be like,
preparation.
That's preparation, yeah. If I feel like I'm around some other neurodivergent people, I'm instantly more comfortable.
Yes.
But I find the beginning is always the hardest. The first bit where you've just arrived and then once you get through that, I actually get a bit of adrenaline, and then I'm fine. I'm like, I'm like doing really good at this. Like some days are harder than others, but this was yesterday. I was like, actually, having my sparkling water, had a nice lunch, we enjoyed the racing. We bet on a race, got a little thrill. And then we left before the mad rush of everyone else, got home in time to put the kids to bed, had a lovely day. But when the adrenaline wore off in the car, I was so tired.
Yeah.
And I was like, I haven't really done anything like physically exhausting today.
Yeah.
I haven't done anything like really tiring. I've just had to like Hugo drove, like we got a driver to drive us home. I was like, I don't have any excuse to be this tired.
Yeah.
But then it's like, Hugo was like, oh, like, how did you find it? And it's like, it's really exhausting being normal. He just like laughed at me, but I was like, and he knows that I'm tricky in these situations. Like I need a time limit, but he was like, I was only just getting into it. So we're just quite opposite like that. And he had like 3 or 4 glasses of wine by then. So as I was ready to go home, he was like, warming up. And he was like, oh, I was just like, could have got really stuck in. And I was like, well, I bet you're going to be glad you've gone home like in the morning when you wake up and you don't have a hangover.
Yes.
He was like, you're so right. But it's just interesting how we're quite opposite. Like he thrives on being social, whereas, and he loves it. Whereas I get so drained by it.
Yeah.
And I used to think I was an extrovert when I was drinking. I was like, I'm an extrovert. Like I love attention. I love being out. And I love being around people. And actually, I'm totally an introvert. I like small groups. I like being in people's gardens with their kids and animals and just seeing best friends one-to-one or maybe a group of 2 or 3. I don't like going places that are super busy or super loud or overstimulating. I'll ask to move table in a restaurant because the lighting feels wrong. And is that something you can familiarize with?
Yeah, the sensory
thing. If the music's too loud and you're trying to listen to someone, like, I hate that.
You talking about, going racing and crowds and stuff, like my palms are a bit sweaty. Hearing you talking about that, I know the crowds and the sensory overload and those situations where, I don't know, whether it's gigs or festivals or just, big crowds, sporting events, they're like high anxiety stuff. But then I love live music or I want to go and watch rugby or cricket or whatever. And so there's a real conflict and a tension there.
How do you do it?
Yeah, how do you do it?
I love the idea of going to festivals again, but I went to one this summer and found it really triggering. Yeah,
and then you throw in the alcohol side as well. My only approach to this is it is totally my choice. And so if I want to use heroin, I can use heroin. If I want to go and drink a bottle of whiskey, I can do that. Like I have the money, I can go and buy it and I can do that. I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And I can go to a festival, I can go to the loudest, craziest, I can go nightclubbing if I want.
Yeah.
But I just either don't want to, or if I do, I have to put in the sort of conditions that help me feel comfortable. Same. Of like, how am I going to get there? Who am I going with?
What time can I leave? Like, what's my exit plan? How long do I have to stay for? Where can the car meet me so I don't have to walk too far through a crowd?
Yep.
Like,
what's happening the day after is really important. Oh, yeah,
because you need to recharge.
What do you say to people like you out there, I guess, Millie, who are late diagnosed female ADHDers that have been missed?
I say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you've gone through life not understanding the way that you are, and that's, I'm sure, led to behavior that's caused you pain. But it's not too late to turn things around if you're, if anyone's feeling really stuck. I know that the situation's pretty dire in terms of people actually getting a proper diagnosis so they're able to get the medication, because you can't get this medication without the diagnosis. Yeah. And I went privately. I'm very fortunate I was able to do that. But if you're not able to do that, the waiting list it's a very, it's a very difficult process.
22 years in some parts of the country.
Wow. Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, it's crisis
levels. So how do those people get help? Yeah. I would say be kinder to yourself, because I think a lot of us with ADHD tend to struggle with negative self-talk and are very self-critical.
Yeah. It's been the best thing about being diagnosed was like just getting rid of the hammer of like I
Why
like
am I
tools.
beating myself up all
Yeah,
the time?
I love tools, but I don't need the hammer anymore.
That's a really good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, just what a relief of like to have an explanation, not an excuse, but an explanation, but also because of having an explanation, not needing the hammer because I don't have to keep whacking myself. Yeah, because I don't know what's going on and I'm getting it wrong, not doing it right. I think that kind of kindness and taking some of that pressure off, and that goes for me of like whether you are self-diagnosed, diagnosed, on a waiting list, whatever. You don't need a diagnosis to be kind to yourself.
And I'd say if you're waiting for a diagnosis, there are lots of great podcasts and books out there that might help you understand more about it. When I first found out I had it, I just wanted to learn more about it. And I really believe that knowledge is power. So it was like understanding more and more about myself and the way that my brain is. I find that really helpful. And there's also other lifestyle, like there's medication, but there's other lifestyle changes you can make to help you manage your ADHD. And
what are the best things you've found?
The best things: time in nature, no processed foods or sugar, like natural sugar a bit, okay, but not like white sugar, less screen time, having a routine, exercise, meditation, medication.
Sleep.
Oh, my, sorry. That's like the most important one.
Don't forget the number one.
So sleep and good quality sleep. Oh, I'm all about sleep. I go to bed. I'm like rejoicing when I get to go to bed at like 8:30.
I'm all for like making the routines, whatever the routines are, as long as the routine has some structure to it. It doesn't matter. Who says you can't have lunch at 11:30?
Oh, it's so interesting talking to you. I feel like I could just talk to you about this all day.
Yeah, it's gone very quick.
You asked me before, I often forget. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't answer that. Whether I think the kids have ADHD. And so Aurelia's 3 and Sienna's nearly 5. I think maybe it's slightly too early to tell. I think Sienna, out of the 2, would maybe have it because she's very similar to me. She's very emotional, very sensitive. Yeah, she's struggling a little bit with learning to write and to read and write. But her teacher said she thinks she might need a bit of extra support with it. Like, she finds the homework quite difficult, to just have to sit down and like focus on doing the homework.
Yeah.
My youngest, they keep saying to me that, if she wants to do something, great. If she doesn't want to do something, it's quite hard to get her to do it.
Okay.
That's also, I think, a 3-year-old.
Yep.
And they're both very stubborn, very strong-willed. But if they've got it, like, great. Like I'll learn more about it and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. What do we need to do to make people more aware about dyspraxia? It does not get the airtime that it deserves, and the belief is that 10% of the UK population are dyspraxic.
Really? I mean, I've had people message me and say thank you for talking about it, because a lot of it's not like there's many role models or like people that are in the public eye that are going, hi, I'm dyspraxic. So maybe
we'll just clip that up.
Yeah, I'm dyspraxic. Hi everyone. I think even my own understanding of it is quite basic. So I need to learn more about it as well.
Yeah, which is amazing that you were diagnosed very early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know any ways to like improve my life with it. But I would guess that the things that help with my ADHD also would help with my dyspraxia.
Yeah, the more you are learning about how to look after yourself and how your brain works, and is naturally going to flow into, I guess helping you with being dyspraxic as well.
I think it's just talking about it more and getting other people. If anyone else listening, if you've got it, just raise your hand, talk about it, whether it's on social media or to your friends or to your family. Just be like, hey, I'm dyspraxic too. And I guess that's how we get the word out about it.
And I don't know, we need to find like an expert in dyspraxia.
Yeah, I would actually love to know more about it. Can you get one on and then I can listen to the episode? That'd be really helpful.
My last question is, who would you like to give your green badge to, Millie? I
would like to give my lovely green badge to my mum. I'm really proud of her for acknowledging that she thinks that she also has ADHD, and for, I guess, changing her mind about it, because the way she felt about it initially was quite negative, and now I think she can see how much it's helping me understanding more about it. So hopefully she will feel that she can wear her green badge, and then she can, tell more people in her community about it.
Love that. Thank you for coming on, Millie.
Oh, thank you for having me. Could talk all day.